So there's a software that we use that allows us to basically synchronize our information pertaining our 5 properties on all free or paid publishers that are online.
From Hotel Tech Report, it's Hotel Tech Insider, a show about the future of hotels and the technology that powers them.
On this episode, we're talking with Roberto Pacaccio, the revenue manager for 5 small independent hotels in San Francisco. Roberto walks us through his hotel's journey from nearly having to close during COVID to embarking on a full-scale tech overhaul, and why you want to pick a system that's easy to use and integrated with the rest of your tech stack. Let's dive in. Well, thank you so much, Roberto, for being on the podcast. Really looking forward to chatting with you. To get things started, I would love for you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your company.
Hello, Adrian, and thanks for inviting me. So my name is Roberto. I was born and raised in Italy, Rome precisely. I moved to San Francisco 15 years ago, 16 probably. And I've been doing a lot of back and forth between Italy and the US. I am the revenue manager and expense manager, actually, of a small group of family-owned hotels based in San Francisco. There's 5 of them at the moment. We like to name them GWT properties, but technically, they're all independent hotels, and they're all located in San Francisco between North Beach area and the Mission District, so very central. We have a total of about 160 rooms, 164 to be more precise, so fairly small. And they've been operational since, under the current management since 2012, 2013. And then the last one that got purchased dates back to 2015, actually. And we're here after COVID. So,
can you tell me a bit about your typical guest? Is it mostly leisure, mostly business travelers?
Sure. So all 5 hotels are 2-star properties. And typically our clientele ranges primarily leisure, a bit of both. San Francisco is a very corporate city, or used to be, I guess, prior to COVID. So we used to get a lot of business travelers during convention days. Things got shifted drastically after COVID. So right now, 80% of our travelers are leisure travelers, and they're typically budget travelers. Budget in the sense that because we're 2-star properties, we tend to attract a clientele that is not looking for luxury or high-level amenities that we cannot offer.
You mentioned the changes in the San Francisco market since COVID. Can you tell me a bit about how COVID affected your properties and how the evolution of technology occurred during COVID?
That's a very good question. San Francisco got hit very hard. COVID changed pretty much everything. And to be honest, the reason why I've been doing a lot of back and forth between here, Italy, and the US is because of COVID. There has been a lot of flexibility, and a lot of people started traveling. And so what happened to us after COVID is that after the first, lockdown, of course, business went down to zero. Basically, we started hosting some essential travelers. But in 2021, summer 2021, business was back to a decent level. As a matter of fact, in 2020, when COVID hit, all property got shut down temporarily. And then when business resumed in 2021, this is back, I would say July, probably June, July 2021, one of the 5 remained closed. And this was the Edwardian Hotel. And then all the others started operating under a completely new business model, which involved a lot of technology, a lot of new tools that we did not use before the shutdown. So we basically took the year and a half, I guess, between March 2020 to June 2021 to review our business model. We knew that we needed more technology to be able to survive the pandemic and the crisis that we were forecasting. And so we started introducing technology, and that involved, for example, software like Vivo that we used actually prior to COVID. It needed like a completely new revamp, or it needed to be refreshed. We did a lot of training to the staff that stayed with us. We introduced a new digital key technology that's called Open Key that a couple of years ago actually got integrated with Aviva. So I ended up helping a lot with streamlining our check-in process. We started using a software called Kipsu that's helping us with messaging. So right now we are able to communicate via text message and WhatsApp with our guests, which is something that we absolutely did not need before COVID because we had staff on site. And so I guess the biggest change that occurred was that three technically out of the five properties right now do not offer traditional front desk services anymore. So we don't have a proper front desk, and that's where technology kind of took over. In a certain way, helped us provide the same type of service that we used to offer before, just under a very different type of customer relationship and a completely different business model. What happened after COVID was also that it was very hard to hire. San Francisco is a very expensive city, like all major US cities, and a lot of people left the state of California, as a matter of fact, during COVID. And so when business resumed in the summer 2021, honestly, there weren't enough people that could provide the services that we're looking for. And again, technology kind of saved us.
So can you talk me through the decision process to choose the specific vendors that you ended up with? Like, were you working with the PMS previously, or how did you decide which systems to implement when you did this tech stack overhaul?
Sure. So we started working with Aviva, which is our PMS and channel manager, in 2018. We transitioned so the 5 hotels at that time were being managed under 5 different PMSs. So they were all very, so I guess the consolidation process started in 2018 with the adoption of Aviva. And then again, when COVID hit and we started introducing additional technology, we looked into the strategy was basically, we talked to Aviva. We asked them what kind of partners they were integrated with, or they were in the process of integrating with. And that's when we started listing down all the options that we had available. And then I talked to some of them. That includes OpenKey for the digital keys, which we ended up choosing. And then Kipsu, same for messaging system. But I can talk about, for the smart locks that we're using, same story for, AccuLocks versus Salto or other companies that we talked with. We started collecting the quotes, of course. We looked at fixed costs, variable costs, and potential additional one-time fees, installation fees, setup fees, and so on. So it was a bit of a mix of, I guess the decision-making process was a bit of a mix of financial elements, but at the same time, technological elements. We wanted to make sure that whoever was going to maneuver that software and those tools could do it fairly easily and ideally from one place only. And that would be, of course, Aviva. It didn't happen right away, meaning that the integration with OpenKey, for example, was deployed only in 2023, late 2023. So for the first couple of years, the team had to move from one software to another to be able to issue the digital keys versus checking people in within the PMS. Same story for Kipsu. When Kipsu was not integrated back then, and as a matter of fact, we're in the process of transitioning from Kipsu to the Aviva messaging system, because in the meantime, they have developed it internally. So there were a lot of little pieces that needed to be put together. The primary goal, at least for me, who was part of I was in the decision-making team, I wanted to make sure that the team was comfortable with what we were going to deploy and adopt and then deploy. And then I wanted to make sure that it was easy for everyone, basically. We were beginners back then. Our use of technology was pretty minimal. We were doing some things online, of course, but we were still operating very, very old school way. Being able to talk to somebody and being able to trusting somebody was what we were looking for. And the companies that we ended up choosing, so Aviva, OpenKey, Kipsu, and Salt on the one hand, and AccuLocks on the other. Yeah, those were the people that ended up spending more time with us, going through the details with us and what it implied, and several training sessions with the team. And so that was very important.
With the transition to smart lock vendor, were you transitioning from like plastic key cards or physical keys or
Physical metal keys, yes.
did you need to, I'm assuming, like fully replace the hardware on the doors?
Yes, that is correct. We had to replace the hardware. We had to replace basically sometimes even the doors, just because the size of the door was not, I guess, compatible with the size of the lock that we ended up choosing. Again, this is something that we had discussed about throughout the years, but COVID kind of accelerated everything. And then when it became necessary, everything needed to happen quickly. And that's why I wanted to mention that level of, the importance of trusting who you're working with, because it just happened very quickly. So having somebody who you can rely on was very important.
So from the guest perspective, you mentioned there's no traditional front desk. So what does the pre-arrival and check-in experience look like? Is there an app that the guest uses, or is there some sort of instructions that they follow to check in without going to that traditional front desk apron?
So there is an application that guests would have to download. The application is powered by OpenKey. But as I said, because OpenKey and Evivo are integrated, technically the check-in process for our team happens within the Evivo system. So once the rooms are ready, meaning that they have been cleaned and prepared for the next guest, our team is instructed to generate the digital keys by checking people in. There's technically a pre-check-in process. So the guest receives an email that says, please pre-check in. The team collects all the information, makes sure that, there's IDs and everything online. And then once that is done, then the team is instructed to basically generate the digital keys through the traditional Evivo check-in process. And the guest receives a text message that informs them that their room is ready and invites them to download the OpenKey app. The OpenKey app is, of course, it works on both Android and iOS devices. There's a version for Android and there's a version for iOS. It works fairly well. It's pretty simple, and it allows our guests to basically unlock the doors from their phones with one click. There is a lot of additional information in there that helps us basically communicate with the guests. Information about, for example, the internet network or where the bathrooms are located, because some of our properties have shared bathrooms. So sometimes being able to show a map through the app is very useful so that people can move around the buildings more easily. There are quite a few other things that we use on a regular basis through the app.
Are guests required to download the app then, or is there a path for them to check in that doesn't require an app download?
Guests are required to download the app, yes. And this is probably the element that we're still working on with both Evivo and OpenKey. Downloading an app might not be the best, or not everyone likes that. So I should have probably talked about this earlier, but out of the 5 properties, as I said, 4 right now do not offer traditional front desk services. One of them, which is the Edwardian Hotel, currently still offers 24/7 traditional front desk services. So we have staff on site 24/7. And they are the ones that are technically helping and coordinating anything that pertains front desk activities at the other properties. So yeah, everything has been centralized in one location, and that location is providing assistance to the other properties. So if there is any sort of issues, say at Hotel des Arts or at Washington's Green or any of the other properties, those would be handled by the Edwardian Hotel. So, for example, if the OpenKey app for whatever reason cannot be downloaded or it doesn't work, we have Plan B, which involves the Edwardian Hotel team, so the front desk situated at the Edwardian Hotel, to provide them with either physical keys, if worst case scenario, I guess option 1, or potentially even physically go and help the guest. So technically we're offering 24/7 assistance. It's just not physically located on properties, but it rarely happens that we need to send somebody with a taxi from one hotel to another to be able to assist. The fact that the OpenKey app is a requirement is not ideal, but it hasn't been the biggest problem that we had to face after we transitioned to this new business model.
We've talked quite a bit about the guest-facing elements like the check-in, the locks. Given that you are the revenue manager, I also wanted to ask, what does your tech stack look like from revenue management perspective? Are you using a standalone revenue management system?
I am using right now a dynamic pricing tool that's called Room Price Genie. It's integrated with Avivo again. So it's feeding Avivo with live data coming from regular calls that they do in the San Francisco area. So they shop around, they see what the pricing is in the San Francisco Bay Area, and then they feed Avivo with pricing. This is very helpful for me. It's helping me a lot because checking the rates 24/7 every day, it's something that, first of all, it's humanly impossible. And second of all, it's just not my, something that I would like to spend my day doing. So it's been a very useful tool for sure. I would suggest actually everyone checking it out because it's been very, very helpful. Again, the integration with Avivo makes a huge difference. If I had that software sitting somewhere else and not talking to Avivo and having to export data and re-import data, not ideal. I mean, it would be helpful, yes, but it wouldn't really streamline my daily operations that much. Whereas knowing that I could count on that integration is really, really helpful. Room Price Genie is probably the software that I check the most. Setting up the pricing rules is something that I tend to play with a lot because it's, of course, embedded in my role and what I'm supposed to be doing for the hotels.
What's an example of a pricing rule that you would set up?
The pricing rule would be, for example, I would provide the software with a base rate, which is an average rate that I believe to be applicable to a specific room type. And then I set up the minimum and maximum pricing for that room type, considering, again, what we're offering and the type of demand that I expect throughout the year. And then I play with what they call the yielding tags. So based on occupancy, I would tell the software, increase the rate by 10%, 15%, 20% based on occupancy levels. I would tell the software there's an application or I guess a tool that allows me, for example, to apply a discount on shoulder nights. So if I know that there's a convention in town, then typically the day after is very slow. And so I set up a rule that says apply, say, 10% off based on, again, occupancy. That is a shoulder night. Other examples would be, for example, occupancy levels, right? So I would tell the system, in August, I want to be at 80% occupancy. In September, I want to be at 85, or in January, I'm okay with 60%. And that, of course, has an impact on how the system computes the rates and my overall occupancy strategy and daily occupancy.
So we've talked pretty comprehensively about your current tech stack. Is there anything on your wish list or any vendor that you've seen that looks really cool and interesting, but you haven't implemented yet?
I have a list.
Yeah. What's at the top?
Marketing tools. We can do much better when it comes to marketing. So there's a software that we use that's called Yext. Yext is a software that allows us to basically synchronize our information pertaining our 5 properties on all free or paid publishers that are online: Yelp, TripAdvisor, Google, Facebook, Yellow Pages, Bing, and so on. That software is great. It's working great. First of all, it's not integrated with Vivo, which is something that I have been pushing for. If Yext was to collect that information automatically from Vivo instead of me feeding it regularly with any updates we did on, room renovations or, new bathrooms or new front desk procedures or new check-in procedures, I would be much easier. But Yext is lacking in marketing. So when I talked to them, they were in the process of deploying a marketing tool within their platform, and it's something that they haven't done yet. So yes, marketing is at the top of my list. I have been talking to a few companies. To me, marketing means basically being able to advertise online on multiple platforms without having to log into each single one. Yelp, TripAdvisor, Google, again, Facebook, social media, TikTok. And at the moment, we're not being very good at this.
So shifting gears a bit, I'm curious to hear how your focus on tech overlaps or contributes to some company priorities. Would you mind sharing one or two high-level business objectives that the company is working toward, and how does technology help you get there?
This conversation would be very different if we had it before COVID, probably. COVID shifted everything. It changed the way we're also seeing the concept of profitability and the way we look at the bottom line. Sadly, as I said earlier, San Francisco was hit pretty hard by COVID, and technology for us was a necessity in the sense that we were on survival mode right after COVID. We just need to survive. So our priority after COVID was to survive the crisis, survive the rising costs. Inflation was crazy high, and so our bottom line was struggling. Our owners, as a matter of fact, had to pour quite a bit of money into the properties to be able to keep on operating. So technology for us is just basically what saved us. Things are shifting a little bit now that we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. San Francisco is still struggling, but the goal, I guess, for us is to start looking back at the bottom line as we should, in the sense that we want to make sure that we want to go back to becoming profitable and start, distributing dividends to our owners and possibly better benefits to our employees. And so our goal is to introduce more technology in order to achieve this, basically going back to being profitable on the one end, and then at the same time being able to offer more to our employees. We may have less employees that we had before, but we want to be able to give more to them based through technology. That's our goal.
How do you measure profitability? Is there a specific metric that you're focused on? And also, what tool do you use to measure that metric? And do you have an accounting tool that you use or dashboard that you look at?
So profitability to me personally is revenues minus expenses. Mm-hmm. Very basic. So 100 comes in, 80 goes out, right? Not from cash flow perspective, but of course, we properly look at it.
Do you look at that on like a per room or per night basis?
We do it per room. We do it per night. We have several indicators that we use, or KPIs that we use to measure profitability. The main one is, so we have a clear understanding of what our break-even point is, and that's per room. So we know that if our ADR goes to under a certain level, then we lose money. Then if we're above, then we make money. So that's our main indicator, of course. And this is where basically technology is having a huge impact. It has basically decreased that value pretty drastically. Our break-even point went down pretty drastically after we implemented all that we've talked about. So again, bottom line for me is revenues minus expenses. So that's what I look at. And I look at that at an aggregated level, at a hotel level at the end of the year. But then, of course, we have several, basically on a monthly basis, when we reconcile our accounts, we check how things went. And then we have a reporting tool that allows us to get a better understanding of what we did well and what we did not do well throughout the previous quarter. And then honestly, having regular conversations with team members is also, it's something that makes a huge difference. Understanding, when I look at expenses and I try to track them down, sometimes the answer is you have to talk to somebody, right? And that somebody can provide you that right feedback and the way you want to look at those expenses. There are expenses that are multi-year expenses that we tend to capitalize. There are certain others that we could capitalize but we don't capitalize. So there isn't really a standard way when it comes to looking at profitability or what level of profitability we want to shoot for. But I think that having tools that allow you to keep track of things regularly, I think, is what makes a big difference for us. We use a software that's called QuickBooks for our accounting. I'm pretty sure that you're familiar with it. It's not my favorite tool, to be honest, but it's pretty functional. It has everything that we need. It was fairly simple to set up. And then the fact that it's integrated, for example, with our payroll system, which is ADP, it's helping a lot because everything is flowing automatically into our accounting software, into QuickBooks. And so being able to review that with a couple of clicks instead of having to go through a bunch of, Excel spreadsheets is very, very useful.
Well, great. Thank you so much for running through the tech stack and the thought behind it. I think our audience will be really happy to hear some of your advice and best practices.
Thank you, Adrienne. Yeah.
Really great speaking with you. And thank you so much for sharing all of this.
Absolutely. Thank you.
That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening to Hotel Tech Insider, produced by HotelTechReport.com. Our goal with this podcast is to show you how the best in the business are leveraging technology to grow their properties and outperform the comp set by using innovative digital tools and strategies. I encourage all of our listeners to go try at least one of these strategies or tools that you learned from today's episode. Successful digital transformation is all about consistent small experiments over a long period of time. So don't wait until tomorrow to try something new. Do you know a hotelier who would be great to feature on this show? Or do you think that your story would bring a lot of value to our audience? Reach out to me directly on LinkedIn by searching for Jordan Hollander. For more episodes like this, follow Hotel Tech Insider on all major streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music.